There's a lot of talk in the gun community right now about the universal background checks and how that they are either a backdoor registration or that they will someday lead to a registration. A lot of people are basing the majority of their opposition on these premises, that it is somehow a backdoor registration or that it will lead to registration. I think that that's a dangerous mindset to fall into because I think we're focusing on the wrong things. There's two reasons for that. For one, if we start saying, oh, this bill is a registration, and someone who is on the fence reads the bill and says, well, there's no registration in here. In fact, a lot of the senators that are talking don't want registration, and they want to put the provisions in the bill that would make it impossible to have a registration. Well, then we've lost the argument with those people already. But the most important thing, the second thing, is that it ignores the more dangerous part of the bill, how the bill is much more heinous than that, actually. And I'll kind of explain to you here what I mean by that. The backdoor registration and the potential lead up to registration, that's all hypothetical. But the reality of this bill is this bill gives the government a foothold to stick their nose in your private business when you haven't done anything wrong and puts the burden on you to prove that you haven't done anything wrong. Let's say the ATF wants to target you. You've made some comments on a website they didn't like, or you're involved in some groups that they don't approve of, and they want to make a target out of you or make an example out of you. They can use this law to say, we know this gentleman has guns, or this lady has guns, and we feel that a lot of their guns were not obtained illegally. Because now in this country, to legally obtain a gun, there has to be an FFL record of it. And we saw a gun they had that there's no FFL record on. We can't find an FFL record on. And they showed it in a video, or they showed it in their pocket, they were wearing it on their hip, or whatever, and we can't find an FFL record on that. And since you can't own a gun without an FFL transfer nowadays, unless they bought it before the ban, we have reason to believe that they bought it illegally until they prove to us that they bought it before the ban. So you could have the ATF showing up at your house, going through all your weapons, checking all your serial numbers, and saying, were some of these you bought new from an FFL? Some of them you didn't. So on the ones you didn't, show to us that you bought them before the ban went into effect so that we don't have to assume that you are a criminal. Take for granted this little gun right here. I bought this gun from a private party. I bought it legally, paid for it. He was legal. I was legal. He was the one selling this gun, so I wasn't taking any liability of transferring a gun to anyone. He didn't want a bill of sale, so I didn't do one. But I own this gun legally. Now, if the ATF was to come in and say, well, we checked this gun's serial number, and the last time it was transferred was in 1985, and it wasn't to you, I would have to say, well, I bought this gun in a private sale. Well, they'd say, okay, great. Provide me a document that would have legal standing in a court to show that you bought this gun from someone, meaning a bill of sale with the serial number, the date, both our names and signatures on it, and other information that the court may demand. Well, I don't have that information. So when you put a law in place where it says, well, you are a criminal if you've bought a gun illegally because you didn't transfer it through an FFL, well, if I can't prove I did it before the law went through, well, therefore, by default, I am now could be charged with a felony possession just for buying this gun without a bill of sale, which was not illegal when I did it. So what happens there is the burden of proof is shoved onto me to prove I'm innocent, not onto them to prove I'm guilty. And remember, this isn't murder. They don't have to prove their case within a preponderance of the doubt. They just have to make it seem like it was probably likely that I probably bought that gun without an FFL transfer after the law was passed. And how hard would it be for them to convince a court of that with the media behind them? So even though I committed no crime, I would automatically be labeled a felon. And that's the biggest problem with this bill. It's not that the things it could lead to. It's the thing that it is. And what it is a reason for the government to stick their nose in your business. It is just cause for them to start violating your privacy. And it makes felons out of you whether you did anything wrong or not. So that's the biggest issue. That's what we need to start focusing on, the invasion of privacy and the fact that this has turned, one of the biggest things that our country is founded on is that innocent until proven guilty, and has reversed that. What this law does is it turns around and it makes gun owners like you and me that have ever bought a private gun that we don't have record of. And this includes transfers from family, because family can only transfer you to you if they bought it from an FFL. There's lots of requirements on it. And like if your grandfather gave you a gun, if it wasn't written in his will in a legal document, you could be guilty of a felony because there's no record of that, legal record of that being transferred to you. They could take that gun. So here they could be seizing guns left and right, but the worst part of it is what this bill does is it takes every legal gun owner in this country and turns us into felons until we prove otherwise.